Hello, welcome to my series where I document my attempts to become a chess grandmaster. I am showing 3 games I played recently. Let's get into it. The first game, I was white and I played d4. Opponent plays d5. I play bishop to f4, knight to c6, and e3, the London system. My opponent plays f6, I play f3, my opponent plays g4 pinning the knight. I play c4 because usually if your opponent's knight is on c6, you play c4, and if your opponent plays c6, you still play c4, but if they play c5, you play c3. That's usually how the London goes. My opponent plays queen to d7, and then knight to c3 was played. I didn't play knight to e5 because I didn't think it was a good move at the time, so I played knight to c3 instead. We have long castles, which I thought was bad because the pawn on d5 is being attacked, and the queen side could be very well pressured by this bishop and this rook on c1. I can also move my queen out as well, potentially, attacking the weak queen side. So I thought queenside castles was bad. I played bishop to e2 and pinning the knight. Later on I kinda wanted him to trade this knight so I could have a bishop staring on the h1, a8 diagonal, but it does not really work the way I planned. He plays h6, attempting g5. I play h3, attacking the bishop. g5 is played. Now here I played too fast because bishop to h2 was not the best move. It was actually e5 instead, putting pressure on this diagonal. And if knight takes, right? Yeah, knight takes, you're forking the queen and the pawn and the bishop. So bishop has to take e2, queen takes e2, and then queen to e6. Never mind, the engine says queen to e8 is the better move, and queen to e8 defending the pawn. This is better for white because this pawn will fall, and I'm gonna have a lot of pressure on the queen side. Plus, the queen is stuck defending the f7 pawn, so it cannot move. And this knight has a nice outpost as long as this knight stays on f6. So I play bishop to h2 here because I played way too fast. He plays bishop to f5, getting out of the attack from the pawn on g4. I play knight to e5, now adding pressure on all these pieces. My thought process was takes, and I get a pin here. I get a nice bishop outpost on e5, pinning the rook and the knight. So knight takes e5, bishop takes e5, and g4 was played. I thought here for a few seconds to make sure that h takes g4 was a good move, and it was. The engine prefers c takes d here, but I did not find this move. But I made sure everything was okay. I also calculated a line which is played in the next moves, because my opponent falls for it. He actually takes back thinking he's fine, but at the end of this line, as I'll show you, he ends up losing a rook. So he takes on g4, bishop takes g4, queen takes g4, queen takes g4 check, knight takes g4, and bishop takes h8. My opponent plays f6, attempting to block my bishop in. I play c takes d5 because why not? It also stops this pawn from coming down, opening the bishop. And here, I kinda got a little bit cocky, and I ended up playing... Well, I didn't think anymore, because I know I'm winning in this position, and I play some weird moves. e6. Here I play f3, the third best move, kicking the knight out, so my bishop can escape by taking on f6. I wasn't really thinking here, so I just played this move, and this came as a shock. He had knight takes e3. It's not a bad move, but I wasn't expecting it because I was too cocky, and I wasn't thinking at all, because I know I'm winning. I play f2, attacking the knight. Knight takes on d5, knight takes on d5, and rook takes d5. And I play bishop takes f6, freeing the bishop. Rook to b5, attacking the b2 pawn. I play b3, protecting. He plays rook to f5, attacking my bishop, and I saw a nice outpost on e5, so I took it. Yet it also stops the pawn from coming down. He plays bishop to d6, attempting a trade. At first I was thinking about this move, but then I realized there's a faster way to win this pawn. I just do a trade, and I just take the pawn this way. Bishop takes, and rook takes h6. Plays rook to d5, attempting to take this pawn. Now here, I was debating whether to sacrifice this pawn or to keep it. And I chose to keep the pawn even though the engine says I should have sacrificed it. I play c1 check, king to d8. I wanted him off of this, so I checked him first. He plays d8. If he played e8, this would have been ladder mate. I think that's what it's called. So he played a good move, d8. And here, I was debating whether to sacrifice my pawn or keep it. Like I said, I chose to keep it. So I played rook to h4, protecting the pawn. He plays e5, attacking it further. I play king to e3, further protecting the pawn, even though there were better moves. He takes d4 check. Rook takes d4 check. I wanted to trade his rook and just go into a two-pass pawn endgame where I'm just winning. He goes e5 check. I actually go f4 here, attacking the rook and threatening check. And he plays king to e7, getting out of the pin. And I play rook to e4, pinning his rook, forcing him to take on e4. King to e6. Rook c to e1, doubling up, threatening to win the rook by force. He plays f6, rook takes e5, pawn takes e5, rook takes e5, with another pawn up. He plays b6, I play g4, starting to get my pawns rolling up. He plays a5, g5 check, king to g6, rook to e6 check, king to f7, king to f5, b5, g6 check, king to g7, rook to e7 check, king to f8, king to f6, a4, g7, king g8, rook to e8 check, king to h7, g8 queen check, g8, well, queen check, pawn turns into a queen, king to h6, and queen to g6 checkmate. That was one of the games I played, and yeah, this is how a 1300 plays chess. The next game, I am white again. I play d4. The only white opening I know is the London system, so we go into a London, well, I go for a different type of London where I go for e4 instead of e3 because he does not have any pawns controlling the center. So he plays knight to f6, stopping e4. So I play f3, preparing e4. And I've never played this position before. I just wanted to play this position because I saw that he had no center and I wanted to take control of it. So playing f3 here was the first I've ever done, trying to play e4. He goes to h5, a move I did not expect. Engine wants me to play g5 to save the knight, save the bishop. But I go for a London idea where you trade the bishop to get the rook open. So knight takes, bishop on g3, h takes g3, e6 is played, e4 is played, taking center space, d6, which I thought was too passive because he blocks in his bishop. I didn't know whether to develop, because I've never been in these positions before, so I didn't know whether to develop the bishop or the knight first, and I chose the knight. He goes knight to d7, which I thought was a weird move, but I guess he just wanted to keep his bishop pressuring this diagonal without blocking it. d5, I played d5 because I calculated that d5 would keep this bishop passive, would keep it trapped here, right? So let's say, well, I would say let's say e takes, but e takes is played in the game. let's say if this is played, he will never get his bishop out this way, and if he fianchettos, let's say he wants to put it on G7, he wouldn't be able to have any, like, his bishop scope will be small. It will not be a very good bishop. And this bishop is staring at a whole pawn chain. So this bishop is inactive as well. So 2 dead bishops is what I was trying to achieve with e5. Also, the point of e5 was to, at some point, allow my knight to go to e4. And he plays e takes d5. E takes d5. And instead of playing g6, getting his inactive or his passive bishop out by fianchettoing, instead he plays knight to c5. He saw a nice outpost here. Okay, so I played this game very late at night, and I was hallucinating that if I were ever to put my knight on d4, he would have this, and I would lose a pawn for free. Like, the whole time I was playing this, every time I thought about d4, I forgot that I had a knight here to take back. Also, by the way, if you hear my dogs barking, it's because it's 4th of July and they do not like fireworks. So, that's why I didn't play d4 here. So later on you'll see I find a different way of bringing my knight to the queen side instead of d4. The whole night I was hallucinating that d4 was not did not work. I don't know why, and that kind of cost me the game in the end, I think. So queen to c5 is played, queen to d2, just preparing queenside castles to keep this pawn secure, so his bishop stays stuck. Queen to e7, I didn't think he would actually go for a queenside castle too, because I thought it would be bad, because all my pieces, well, if I play d4, but all my pieces will be staring at the queen side, so I would launch a queenside attack here. But he kind of does a monkey see, monkey do, and he copies me. He literally copies me for the next 2 moves as well. So my whole point of king to b1 was to get my knight from e2 to c1 up to b3 or d3. Now I didn't see d4 here. I did not see d4 here because every time I would look at d4, I would see this and I would lose a pawn. I kept hallucinating because I kept thinking I would block my queen, and I would completely forget about my knight on c3. So I never played d4 this match because I kept hallucinating. I was very tired when I played this game. So king to b8 was played, knight to c1, and rook to e8, trying to take over the e file. And when I saw rook to e8, I saw that his light squares on his queen side were weak, so I played bishop to b5, attacking the bishop and potentially placing my knight here to trade it off. I mean my bishop here to trade potentially putting my bishop to c6 to trade it off. And he plays d8. Now here I was debating either rook to e1, rook h to e1, or rook d to e1. I was debating which one. I go rook d to e1 because I saw that I potentially have rook to h4, rook to a4, so I didn't want to move this rook away from here. And he goes queen to f6, putting pressure on my knight and this diagonal. And I play knight to b3, attempting to go to b4 this way, but this way is way more dangerous than just going to e4 directly. I expected him to take here because after bishop to, let's say, c6, and gain control of this space here, and potentially put my knight in, move my queen up as well, and checkmate the king. I expected takes because in my elo, everyone takes pieces for no reason, so I thought he would. But he did not. I was confused. But it's all good. Plays knight to d7. So, I actually calculated this line during the game, and I did not see beyond it, so I did not play it. I saw this, and this, And I thought if I took the rook, it would not be a good move. And so I did not play this. But the engine says instead of taking the rook, I could play rook h to e1, doubling up instead. So that's what I could have done, but I only saw up to here and I was like, I don't think I should take this rook, and I didn't play this because I don't know, I just saw this and I wanted him to trade this way. And he plays g6, getting his bishop to this diagonal. I play rook takes d7, king takes b7 because my goal is to get a rook on d4 and jump in as a nice outpost here. And I play d4. The engine prefers e4 instead to kick this queen back to g7, which I missed. So there's that. So I played knight to d4 instead. Bishop to g7, which after seeing, I knew this was a very dangerous move here. The thought of this is, if I ever move this knight, I'm getting checkmated. So this knight cannot really help in the attack that well. So after this move, I play knight to c6 to get a good outpost here, controlling squares on the 6th rank. And after rook d to e8, I calculated that I should not let him take instead, because if I took his rook first on e8, I would have rook takes h7, a free pawn. So I said to myself, this blunder is a free pawn, and so I took it. Rook takes e8, rook takes e8, rook takes h7, and he plays rook to h8, trading off the last rook I had. I thought that was a bad move, but I was not able to capitalize on it because I ended up becoming so low on time that you'll see the blunders I made. Queen to e1. My goal is to take over the e file so my knight can safely just infiltrate. Plays knight to e5. I play knight to e4, attacking his queen. Goes queen to g7. And here I'm 1 minute. I have 1 minute left on the clock. And this is where I start to fall apart. Queen to c3. Good move. Getting my queen into the attack. If he ever takes here, I could take with the queen. Rook to g8, which I thought was a bad move. Now, here I was very low on the clock, so I did not see knight takes e5, bishop takes e5, and queen to c6 check. I did not see that. So I play queen to a3, attempting to take on a7. He plays a5, stopping it, and here I remember I had 1 second left on the clock. 1 second left. And I had no time to calculate, so I just played b4. As you can see, I had 1 second left on the clock. So I played b4, which costed me the game. Queen to g7, preparing a checkmate trick, or trap. B takes a5, knight to c4, a6 check, and king to a8, and I lose on time. And it didn't matter anyways because he had checkmate. So that's this game. The third game, I play as black. c4. I thought this move was awkward because I never played c4. Well, I haven't played against c4, that often. Play knight to f6 because trying to play the King's Indian or the Grunfeld. g3. I thought we were getting into the King's Indian Fianchetto variation, but he takes me off theory. So g6, d4, bishop to g7, bishop to g2, castles, knight to c3, d6, f3. Now the theory I know, or the theory I wanted to play in this game was this, knight to c6, and he has the choice of pawn to d5, pawn to h3, I believe pawn to b3, and queen to d3. That's the theory I wanted to play with the knight to c6. Instead he plays a3, which catches me off guard. So knowing the Fianchetto variation theory, one of the main ideas, if you ever play d5, was to go a5. So I was debating whether to go a5 or play e4, which is another type of idea in the Fianchetto variation of the King's Indian defense. and I was torn, but I choose e4. He plays d5, and now this is kind of this kind of reminded me of a classical variation, but I was still debating on a5 or try to try to play like a classical King's Indian defense by going to knight to e7, and I chose knight to e7 because I'm more confident with the classical-ish variations here of the King's Indian defense. He plays castles. I play knight to d7, preventing c5 from being played. Bishop to e3, trying to take control of the dark squares here. And if I ever place my knight on c5, his bishop will trade and ruin my pawn structure. And I play f5, going for a kingside attack. Usually when you play f5 in the King's Indian, you go for a kingside attack. This move sometimes threatens to trap the bishop in. He plays bishop to g5, pinning my queen, but I kind of like the idea of him taking my knight for his dark squared bishop, because in fianchettoed variations, let's say you have a fianchetto dark squared bishop, if your opponent's dark squared bishop gets traded off, your dark squared bishop becomes significantly stronger. So I kind of like this idea of him taking my knight here, so I play h6. If he were to play bishop to h4, g5 would trap the bishop, winning a free piece. So I play h6, bishop takes e7, queen takes e7, and I should be better here because I have a dark squared bishop, and he doesn't, so my dark square control is way better. He plays e3, stopping f4. I was debating e4 or g5. The point of e4 was to open the scope of the bishop, but I did not like e4. Knight to h4, I did not like this, because he's putting pressure on my weak g6 pawn, and I did not know what to do here. I did not know how to defend other than h7, and I kind of didn't like this position for whatever reason, so I did not play it. I played g5, preparing f4. I calculated that he would play e4 here. I would play f4. I thought this was still fine and better for me. Let's say he takes. I have g takes, and I have this pawn chain. Actually, the engine liked a different line here. It liked bishop to h3, putting pressure here. It liked f6 if I remember. Yep, f6. The goal of f6 is to attack this bishop here, forcing a trade. I think black is better here actually, because if you can get your rooks in and transfer these rooks over and open up the position, it's very hard for white to play. So this is the position the engine recommended. So g5 I played, and he blunders by playing h3. If I played f4, like in the other line, e3, f4, then h3 would be good, as this bishop has control of the light squares in my position and pinning the bishop. But because the f4 pawn here was actually on f5, when he played h3, he blundered into a fork on h3 and f3, and he resigns. So yeah, thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, please like, comment, and subscribe. The reason I'm trying to make videos is to get over my crippling anxiety over them. I'm doing this to become more confident. So yeah, thanks for watching my journey to becoming a grandmaster, and have a nice day.